Doing a video now about Atlantis, if you're interested in such things. I had mentioned about 3 weeks ago or a month ago that I was going to get into these subjects. And the first thing that I touched on was King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and Merlin. So that was a legend, but not quite as ancient as the concept of Atlantis. Now, I've made a video about this a while ago, which did get a lot of attention in the past couple of years. So for a subject like this, I think is pretty much a significant fact because, you know, thinking about Atlantis, what is that going to do for us in the present day? It's not like a subject about Justin Bieber or what's the hottest video game this week, you know. So I'm glad that people are interested, but what I've done is to continue my research. I've got Google Earth over here because I just keep looking across the globe for Atlantis. So I type out your little comments now. No, I don't. I'm not saying literally that Atlantis will be marked on Google Earth, or that you can find it so obviously delineated, but the remnants, the marks of it somehow are going to show up. And plus, I'm looking, and from the research, it's really important to keep the account of it, all the statements, in a logical structure. All right, so this video is just off the top of my head, really, but that's usually the way I roll. But I'm going to try to keep this orderly by saying that the famous information, the most common, has come through Plato. Now, there's also a lot of things about Plato that we're not quite sure about. So, first of all, the thing is, some people doubt that he even had his teacher Socrates as a literal person. When Plato talks about Atlantis, he does so in two of his published or discovered works. And one is Critias. I'm not sure about the pronunciations. I'm sorry, I wasn't taught in the university. I learned mostly by reading and not by hearing from a teacher. And the second work was called Timaeus. And I believe Critias was the name of the person that's telling him this. And this is passed down from his grandfather, and his grandfather had met Solon, who was in Egypt and had all of the ancient lore of the Egyptians, because if you know from historical study that Egypt is considered to be older and more knowledgeable than the ancient Greeks, if you can imagine that. But let's talk about first I'm going to talk about location, and then I'm going to talk about the timeline, and then I'm going to try to tie it in with all the other stuff that's out there that is a mystery. And the primary mystery being Atlantis. And then on the conclusion, I'm just going to try to say why I think it's relevant today, and what it has to say for us. Okay, so I have the a handy atlas here, which I really like just having a book, instead of looking at the screen all the time. Yeah, Google Earth is great, but I use this actual paper atlas as a supplement. Here we have a map of the whole world. It's the whole Earth, and it's at I think a Mercator projection. And no, I'm sorry, this is a Robinson projection. And you also see in the oceans that show you elevations. So that's probably one of the most interesting tools that you can use these days, is the mapping of the ocean floor or the seabed or the seafloor, or however you want to put it. They didn't have this several decades ago, like in the 60s, or they had scant information, just very generalistic. They did not have a lot of details, and even the ridges, like the most famous one, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which was first studied, they didn't even really know about that. Going back, look, 50 years, 100 years, they were doing transatlantic cable. They did these huge projects with, they were dropping this cable down there, but didn't really know too much about what was down there. So they were probing, and with now we have submarines, and they do a lot of with the military. But if it's not that, it's sometimes a scientific function, which I'm totally agreeable with. I love a good submarine, and also the techniques of radar, laser, whatever they do to measure different distances and such. Now look, the description of the location is a very profound riddle. Because first of all, people are saying that this location, within context of like what's Atlantis about, it could actually just be a moralistic tale that Plato is doing, and we have to consider the fact that it seems to be patriotic of Athens, because it's the telling of a war. Many people don't really understand that. So talk amongst yourselves and remind each other, or tell the younger generation that it's not just about these accounts and Plato's account saying that it was a Atlantis that got destroyed by some kind of cataclysm. This is the story of a war, and a war that was going on for quite some time. But it started in ancient prehistory. Okay? It didn't really start within any timeline that we accept scientifically, the establishment science. Because we think of the world only going back about 4,000 or 5,000 years of history to the ancient Sumerians in Ur, city of Ur, and the Indus civilization, Indus Valley, which then became what's known as the Hindu, and they had their Vedic culture. We don't think of the Egyptians going quite back so far. But there's reason to believe that information is being covered up. Okay? If you're listening and you're into this kind of stuff, you're like, that's an understatement. But see, that doesn't go without saying. Something's been covered up by different authorities, which are actually false authorities. They're all warring amongst themselves, and that's why they lie. Because through these lies, they like to keep their power. Anyhow,